All right, thank you guys. I'm Jeff Brickler. I'm the product manager for CADTALK, so I really appreciate you guys attending today. So just to begin, you should see on your screen a gear train assembly, so an e-drawings of a gear train assembly. Just to talk about the agenda a little bit, we're going to first introduce these designs, talk about what CADTALK does, how it does it, and how it integrates with Acumatica. I'm going to show you a demonstration of the software, do two different demonstrations, and then talk about how we're able to configure CADTALK for every Acumatica customer worldwide. And then I'll show you a second assembly, a second demonstration, where you'll see the power of CADTALK, where we can load an entire assembly, right, a finished good product from being a brand new product with some existing items. So we'll go through the whole gamut of the possibilities of what can be done. So CADTALK is a middleware product, which means that we talk to the CAD data. It doesn't require CAD, but it talks to the CAD data and transforms that to what Acumatica needs for the manufacturing side. Again, CADTALK doesn't store any data. It's not another system where you would store the information or export. It is that communication translation layer, as it were, from CAD to ERP. So let's go ahead and begin. On the screen, you'll see this gear train assembly. This assembly is a SolidWorks model. Again, SolidWorks I'm using just today for the purpose of the demonstration. We read any CAD system out there. Inventor and SolidWorks make up the bulk of the market, but if you have other CADs as well, we support those. So you see this gear train assembly. This is a brand new assembly, sub-assembly actually, that we're going to load with CADTALK and then create all the new stock items and the whole bill of material in Acumatica. Then we'll talk about how CADTALK can do that using our patented technology for transformations. Then we'll use the C-Scooter final that you see in the screen here, which is a complete finished good. Now that gear train assembly is a part of that C-Do scooter. So the C-Do scooter will have a mix of existing parts and new parts. So you'll see both in the gear train assembly how CADTALK is able to create everything from as new, and then with the C-Do scooter, how we were able to then update items, existing items, and create a new finished good bill of material. So you have both scenarios of from new and existing. All right, so now I'm going to minimize the screen here. And now you should be seeing CADTALK. You see the CADTALK interface. I'm going to make it bigger. We'll log into Acumatica. CADTALK uses the same logins that someone would use to log into Acumatica through the web. So just that quickly, I'm connected. I'm now able to talk to Acumatica. I simply select the Load SolidWorks file where I browse. I can use my PDM or EPDM or a file-based system to browse to where I need to load my SolidWorks model. I select the SolidWorks assembly files. So here I will select that gear train assembly first. So this is the new assembly, completely new, nothing exists. So once I select that, just that easily I hit open. CADTALK says, hey, I've found multiple bills of material. SolidWorks has this idea of configurations if you're familiar with SolidWorks. I'll select the 4-gear set. Hit OK, and you'll see down below on the left how quickly CADTALK's extracting the data out of SolidWorks, right? And then we're running through transformations. Essentially what we're doing is we're pulling all the metadata out of SolidWorks. So that includes part numbers, descriptions, any custom properties that are attached to the SolidWorks model we're able to access, including the whole bill of material tree. So now in this interface, you can see a number of icons. All of them are red with an operation attached to them. So what you're seeing is that full gear train assembly we pulled the data out of SolidWorks, the whole bill of material tree. We updated information like the item class that was required in Acumatica. We updated As you see here, the description on the right. So we were able to access all of that information and now prep it for Acumatica. So now that you see the save button is enabled, I can save all of this. So I can hit save, and now what CADTALK is doing is it's doing that process of going to Acumatica and creating each new stock code. So each of those red items you see on the screen, all of those items are new stock items. So it would be like someone going into Acumatica, right, creating the stock items one by one, updating the descriptions, updating the item class, doing all of those parts individually, and then going to the bill of materials screen and then creating all the sub-assemblies like the ZS06-302 and the ZS06-304, creating those, and then finally in the bill of materials screen creating the parent here, in this regard, ZS06-310. So now you see everything is green. Just that quickly, CADTALK went from a new item that was a new assembly that was created in SolidWorks, and we were to transform that into what Acumatica needs, and now it's ready to be released. So the manufacturing side can begin the task of making these parts, right, and getting them out the door. Now you may ask yourself, well, how does CADTALK know what Acumatica needs, right? Like my CAD system doesn't have that data. So here you see, here's an assembly operation. Actually, we drill down farther into all the parts, all the full levels of the fully indented bill. So I see some assembly operations on there. I see there's an item class, and these are all new items. How does CADTALK know that I want an assembly operation? How does CADTALK know what I use for my description, right? How does it know all of that? And the great thing about CADTALK is that CADTALK is configurable. We're able to configure CADTALK for every customer worldwide to this property mapping screen. So this is really where we would build the intelligence into CADTALK for your process. You have to think of it like Excel. So Excel is an application that is used all over the world to do just about anything. Because of the power of the expressions, right? You can do lookup lists, you can do simple mathematics, all in Excel. That same kind of technology is what we're looking at here in CADTALK. So to give a simple example, in CADTALK, I have an expression that says I want to update the description in Acumatica, and I want to use the SolidWorks description, SolidWorks property called description. Now the beauty is you can change this description here, the name of the property, depending on what you have. So if you call it main description or DESC, or you call it title, whatever you call it, we can write this expression in here that will pull the data out of SolidWorks. I can even do more sophisticated logic by asking if this is a new part, update the description. If it's an existing part, keep it the same. I could even compare revisions by saying, well, my revision in SolidWorks and my revision in Acumatica, we'll compare those two, and if the revision in SolidWorks is greater than the revision in Acumatica, then we're going to update the description. So really, that kind of power that you would think about in Excel with doing conditional logic, if cell A1 and B1 have some values, then do something else in C1, that's the same, or similar, I should say, type of technology that you could do with CADTALK here. So that's how we're able to know, say, description. And you say, well, what about routing steps, right? What about operations, right? How does it know to add an assembly operation? I don't put operations in my model, nor should I, because operations aren't a design piece of data, right? I don't know maybe what they need. So I don't put operations. And we say, in fact, that's right. You shouldn't be putting operations in your model. You can if you'd like, but CADTALK doesn't require that. So, for example, how did I know that I needed an assembly operation? Well, there is already native data in SolidWorks that tells me something about what I'm looking at. So in this example, I'm checking to see, you see it's an if expression, SolidWorks item that has components tells me that this is an assembly. If it's an assembly, then I'm going to add an assembly operation. So even with, there is native data, metadata about the model in SOLIDWORKS that we can use to determine whether or not we need to add an assembly operation or a weld operation or a cut. I've done some sophisticated logic with customers where we look at the raw material property on the model, and then we determine the correct work center, the correct routing steps based upon the thickness of the metal, what type of metal it is, whether it goes to the saw or to the laser. Those are the types of applications that I've seen our customers use, and we were able to do all of that through our property mapping screen. So without getting too technical, this is where I and my team would do our work. When a customer purchases CADTALK, we provide all the implementation included. So this is where I would do the mapping stage and then be able to send you the mappings, these automation scripts, as it were, by exporting them. So to update CADTALK doesn't require every time you ask for something new or you would like some more logic, doesn't require that CADTALK be rebuilt and sent to you a new version. We just we export settings, we send them to you. You can import them using the import button. You restart CADTALK and you have all the new settings ready to go. So now that we have done that subassembly, that gear train assembly, and now I'm going to do that much larger finished good, that product, that C-scooter final. So again, I'll close this for the sake of clarity, and then I'll say load SOLIDWORKS file. Again, I'm going through PDM or EPDM or just a file system on the network. I browse to that. I select just the model properties, just assemblies, and then I say I want that C-scooter final. I hit open. Again, I get multiple configurations. Select the default and select OK. The same process again, right? You see down here how you say extracting data. So CADTALK has already extracted all the data from SOLIDWORKS. That part is finished. So now what CADTALK is going to do is it goes to Acumatica, and using the part number that we have in the model, it requests that data from Acumatica. It actually asks Acumatica, hey, does this part number exist? And if Acumatica says, yes, it does, then CADTALK says, well, okay, give me that information. All right, and it does that for every single item in the bill using that part number. And then once CADTALK gets that response from Acumatica, that's when we run those property mappings. We make decisions about, well, what do we want to do? Now that we've matched these two items, we have on the part number, we know that the part number is the key. Then what do you want me to do with that data? How do you want me to update it? So now you see, again, a whole lot of red, but if I were to expand all and I go down, you can see, hey, there are some other icons there, some green icons and some yellow icons. This ZS06310, that's the gear train assembly, right? If I scroll to the right, you see there's that gear train assembly. It already exists. So I am now marking existing items, and then I'm updating existing items. You see here that this icon is yellow. That means, hey, I've updated this information, right? And so then I can look through here and say, what did I update, right? So now we have a mix here of existing items, right, yellows, and then I have new items in red. You see I'm highlighting on the red items, I'm highlighting all the data that I'm updating or I'm creating. So all of this here in yellow says, hey, this is information that you're going to be updating. You're going to be writing this data to Acumatica when you hit save. Again, we have to remember that CADTALK is a middleware product. We don't, in fact, store data in CADTALK and then pick it up later. So right now what you're looking at is an in-between state, right? All right, so for example, let's say if I want to be able to delete that part before I put it into the Acumatica, I can do so. I just did that just quickly. Again, to say I'm ready to go, I can hit the save button, and as you see down here in the dialog, it's creating all of those parts in Acumatica. So all the new parts, right, just like I said before, it goes to the inventory screen and would create all of those new sort of item master parts. So all those ones in red that you see, it creates all of those first. It updates the description, the item class, the unit of measure, any of that data that you would normally create with an item, or a stock item, then that's what CADTALK is doing now. And then once it's done, again, it goes to all those sub-assemblies, creates all of those, right? So in the bill of materials screen. And then finally at the end creates that ZS06-100. So all of those steps that you would do in Acumatica manually, one by one by one by one, CADTALK's just doing that systematically. And not only are we doing that systematically, we're doing it with the data that we transformed from CAD into what Acumatica needs. So we can take, in a matter of seconds, really take the bill of material from CAD, whether it's new or existing, and then update and create all at the same time. Now, you expect that once it's finished, it returns green, and it does. So now you see in this interface a completely finished green assembly, fully finished, final assembly, finished good product, that C-Scooter Dolphin. Now, if I go to Acumatica here, right, and I'll say I hit refresh so that I can see all the parts. Right here I am in the bill of material. I'll drill down all the way to the end, and there you have, right? So you can see all those ZS06, 302, 300, 304, 310. So you can see all of those here that were created, right? So all of those parts are there. So if I look for the ZS06-100, there it is. I can look at the BOM ID 72, and again, I can bring up that bill of material. Right, so there's the assembly, and then here are all the inventory IDs, materials attached to them. So the ability of CADTALK, the beauty of CADTALK is you're able to look at the entire bill of material all the way down, right? So I can work on any level at any time and make any changes that I want. I can drag and drop from one operation to another, right? So I can select, I can add operations by right-clicking and saying Insert Operations. I can drag parts from one operation to another. Those are the kinds of things that can only be done in CADTALK, cannot be done in Acumatica. In Acumatica, one would have to delete parts from the operation, add new operations, and then add the parts back. With CADTALK, you can do everything you need to do from the BOM standpoint right in this interface. Now, I can also update every property that's on a stock item or a bill of material. So again, so the beauty is we have customers who, once they have CADTALK, not only do they have the aspect of automation and pulling from CAD, and they also have the ability to manually do anything in here that they need. So before making changes to Acumatica, they can see every single change that they want to make. If there's any data that's not been automated, say, well, there are some issues here, I got to add some raw material or add more operations. You can do all of that in this interface before hitting the Save button. So CADTALK works isn't just to simply take CAD data and put it over in Acumatica. It's really a powerful tool that says, take CAD data, transform that data into what Acumatica needs, provide an interface that a user could then make manual additions and do some auditing aspects before then saying, okay, this bill is what I want. I'm going to now save to Acumatica. And again, when we implement, say, well, I work with someone on the team who knows what the bill of material should be, and someone might say, well, how do I get the settings, or how do I know how to update? Again, once I do my work, I would export the settings, then I would go through the wizard, right, and I would select the settings. I would select the property mappings and the SolidWorks settings, and then I would send those out. I'd save them, and then I'd send them to you. And then you do the import, right? And you import the files, right? So just if I go over here and I go to my settings, I can look at the .CADTALK settings and import the SolidWorks CAD demo settings. So just that quickly, I'm able to make those changes to the software that are unique to my organization, to what I need. So that's how CADTALK is able to be configured for you who have one process, and for another customer, maybe in a different part of the United States, maybe in Europe or in Africa or in Asia, we're able to handle that using those property mappings, really that ability for that transformation. Okay, that sums up my presentation for today. I'm happy to take questions about CADTALK and what it can do and what maybe I didn't cover that you guys would like to hear about.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. That's very slick. Does look like we have a couple questions here, and everybody feel free, as I'm asking Jeff these questions, to submit additional ones there in either the chat or the Q&A. So, Jeff, the first question is, how do you support ECNs? Okay,
that's a good question. That question comes up a lot. So a lot of customers will say, well, how do you do revisions or ECNs? And a lot of times, by the time customers come to CADTALK, they have an engineering workflow that they've been using. Maybe they use a PDM or they use a vaulting system, and they have a system for those engineering changes. But how does CADTALK handle those changes? Well, one of the most often what I see is that, say, Acumatica has a place for revisions, and so does, say, a PDM or a vault or whatever revision tracking happens in the CAD. And then we are able to compare the revisions, say, in Acumatica with the revisions in CAD and say, so if there's revision, let's say, one in Acumatica, and then there's an engineering change, and then it goes through the whole process, and then that revision gets changed in SolidWorks to a 2. CADTALK can then compare the revision in Acumatica, which is 1, with the revision in SolidWorks is 2, and at that stage we can do whatever the user wants. So say we can add new parts, add new parts that aren't on the bill, remove old parts that are no longer in the CAD system, update descriptions, update quantities, make any necessary changes that someone wants. And so that's the bulk of what I see with our customers is that method of tracking the changes in the ERP for the purpose of CADTALK, and then they use their PDM or vault systems for their workflow and the engineering change.
Okay. You may have touched on this earlier, but just to reiterate, outside of SolidWorks, what other CAD systems do you support?
That's good. So the major ones, SolidWorks is a major player, so is all the Autodesk products, so Inventor, AutoCAD, Revit, and there's this new Fusion 360. We support all of those Autodesk products. We also have a spreadsheet add-in that will read any export from CAD, but we also have native integrations to Creo. We have a PLM integrations. Let's see, what else? Again, AutoCAD, Revit. We have a Tekla. So really, it's just too many to name. If someone has a specific CAD, we can talk about how best we integrate that. So what we're using today with our customers.
Okay. Well, here's a specific question. Have you done any implementations with Solid Edge?
Absolutely, yeah. We have Solid Edge, absolutely. So that's one of the CADs I forgot to mention. So I shouldn't, because Siemens is a local company here. But yes, we absolutely do. We have both Solid Edge and Team Center. I've done both of those.
All right, perfect. Here's another question. Have you seen customers use measurements from part files to create inspection documents?
So I would do a little more clarification on inspection documents. So typically CADTALK doesn't, unless it's something in Acumatica that we would trigger, CADTALK wouldn't create like a PDF or some other document that would be used for inspections or document management, like a drawing. Usually that's done on the engineering side.
Understood. Okay. And what do I need in my models for CADTALK to work?
That's a good question. So it's often we get the question of, hey, what do I need to do to my model? Or I need to change my model so that CADTALK will work because I need to put all this data in there. And in fact, almost all of our customers, when they come to us, they may not have the most ideal modeling practices, but if you have a part number in your model that you're using, and then it corresponds to a part number in your ERP, it doesn't have to be the same number, but there's a correspondence there, right? Maybe it's prefixed or suffixed, or maybe there's some way to cross-reference it to get from one to the other. CADTALK will work for you. There's no doubt. Now, the level of automation, the level of transformation that we can do depends upon how much data there is. We can leverage what's already there, but we also recommend that the designers only put in the model what makes sense, right? What makes sense for their design. It doesn't make sense to manually type data into SolidWorks or any CAD system just so we could map it in CADTALK. It'd just be just as easy for a person who is managing the bill to add that data in CADTALK, because you're going to add it manually one way or another. But if it's valuable for SolidWorks and for the design process, then absolutely put it in there.
All right, that makes sense. Another question here on Solid Edge. Can CADTALK pull from Solid Edge draft files instead of assembly files?
Oh, okay. So I guess that's reading from the drawing. Typically, CADTALK can read from drawings. We don't recommend that as a method, primarily because the drawing itself is flat and not as intelligent as a model, right? The model has a whole bill of material tree, and it has a whole amount of data on it as well. And to create a drawing file or a draft file, you have to use the model. You start with the model first. So now if there are additions that you put on the drawing after you created it, then we could, if you know what those are, we could create the mappings to then add those parts additionally through CADTALK, right, to the property mappings by using the model. But we don't recommend using the drawings typically, because it doesn't give the effect that, doesn't give the sort of depth of data that you would want for the transformation.
Got it. Okay. All right. It looks like that is the end of our questions. We are right on time there with our stop time. Thank you so much to CADTALK and to you, Jeff, for the presentation today. This was really great.
Great. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next webinar.